So I've been in office for 6 years, and this is one of the fastest growing districts that we have. Actually, Canadian County, which I personally live in, has been the fastest growing in the state for over a decade. The district, when it first was elected, it actually went all the way to Enid. It no longer does, but it still has parts of 4 counties. But we had to shrink it down quite a bit for redistricting because we had so many people. I mean, it was almost 16,000 people too many. I guarantee when we redistrict, it will happen again. And so, what are the biggest struggles really are the infrastructure, what we've got. It's good problems, it's growth problems, but infrastructure, roads, bridges, water in particular is what affects. And then I have some great schools in the district, and each one of those are really facing a growth issue. Oh, it's always personal responsibility. I have three little grandchildren, 8, 9, and 10, or actually one turned 11 yesterday. So 8, 9, and 11, and focusing on making sure that they're getting a lot of exercise outside, what they eat, so that but all that's personal responsibility where you go from there. And then with what I've heard from some of my occupational therapists, is wanting children to really even get outside more because of the screen time so many have. They're not developing their hand muscles. It's fascinating to see the change because as a child, I grew up. Actually, it's nice I get to represent my own hometown of Piedmont, where I graduated from myself. And the amount of time that we were outside, it was much more of a rural community. It's now part of the suburban area, but at that time it was really a farm community. And so what we did to interact with, I was in 4-H myself, so showing animals, taking care of animals, all that really helps contribute really to mental health and to your physical well-being. So making sure that we're never stifling that for each school district to have that option on what works best for them. We had a daughter that was a president of FCCLA when she was in high school. And it was just so good because that has changed so much. It was very much home ec when I was in school, but now they do so much. I mean, they do public speaking. They participate in public speaking, but it's also food service, all kinds of things. It is encouraging to see what they really focus on now. They're very good to come up to the state capitol. They have a day, and you can always see them in their red coats. And so they come up and really interact with us a lot at the legislature. And it's great for the students to see how our system works. I always encourage, we have a PAGE program at the state capitol for juniors and seniors. And I'm always encouraging students to do that because I tell them, even if you don't like it, we're still spending your money. It's a good idea for you to have a slight idea of what we're doing. Well, and it's more like a lab class. Books, theory are always good, but when you can put it into practice. And so that's why it's so good for any person to be able to come up to the Capitol, but also especially the students, because then it makes it come alive to them. Part of the biggest struggle that Piedmont struggles with is that the city and the school districts are not the same. They overlap, but they're very different. And so who voted down the propositions were the city of Piedmont residents, but not the school district. So there's some real overlap. What can happen, I've been very impressed. Several years ago, we passed some legislation for a grant opportunity for if they had roads that were damaged specifically by oil trucks, with our oil and gas. And Piedmont has been the #1 grant recipient from that. It's all their credit. I mean, yes, I had the legislation, but what they've done is be able to go after, and I believe it's close to $2 million specifically to help their roads that were damaged by oil and gas. They've made the case of here's where we are. And so they've been able to put that money towards the roads that were specifically damaged by oil and gas, and then use that 2 million to other roads. They're working on it. I mean, any infrastructure issue is always an ongoing battle. I mean, like I said, I grew up there in the 80s and we had rough roads then. And so it's always an effort to make sure that you're working to keep up. Maintenance is never exciting. Everybody wants to everybody wants to get a new car. Fixing your plumbing's not really fun. But if you maintain it, it's always a little bit better than trying to fix it from ground zero. last interim session, so a year ago this time, I had an interim study on ranked choice voting, which if people are not aware, that's simply when you have multiple votes, you go, like say there's 5 on the ballot and you list them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I really did try to go into that with an open mind of what's good, what's bad. And what I really took out of it is that it sounds good in theory, but because you're saying, oh, well, maybe we'll have fewer election dates, we'll save money. Actually, you don't. In Oklahoma, we are very fortunate. We have a statewide voting system. We all vote the same way. We all vote on paper, and we use Scantrons to scan our ballots so that we have the results that night. After the interim study, it was very clear you would have to use a calculator, or excuse me, you would have to use a computer, not just a calculator, to figure out who won. Also, even our state election board told us we would have to add at least a couple of weeks to be able to come out with our election results. That's very concerning. I know, and I don't want to get too deep in the weeds for you because it was a half-day interim study, but it showed the fact that they had some that were just miscalculated. They actually, I believe it was in California, they put people in office that actually were not duly elected. They had to redo it again after that person had actually voted on some of their budget issues. So it's very concerning. That's why we have a great system, and that's why I would be opposed to it. And that's why I was opposed to it. I could have carried the bill myself, but actually Eric Roberts was very interested in this as well. So I was just his co-author so that we didn't have to have multiple bills on the same issue. I was very glad it passed, and we'll just continue to keep the good system that we have. I do carry a lot of election law myself, because we need to make sure that we're always looking at best practices, but also being aware of the good practices that we currently have. I will say I am a pro-life representative. Life is sacred. And where I was going, especially with my chemical abortion pill, it is not legal in Oklahoma, but what we've done with the federal government is they're saying that they can come in through the mail. They are still a drug. And so they are very dangerous. What I was trying to stop was the trafficking of them so that someone is not getting them. My concern was like someone get them for themselves, think it works fine for them, give them to someone else thinking they're helping them. And then that woman have an ectopic pregnancy or a health issue. If she has a bleeding issue and she takes those, they can be deadly to her. We've had some of that issue. I was also concerned about other people profiting, like sex trafficking. And so they want to keep them going. So they give them to the person to the woman that's pregnant so that they don't miss out on any of their profit. What a horrible, horrible thing. The whole issue of that is trafficking is horrible. But the fact that they would continue to prey on someone, and especially again, I continue to focus on the health of the woman, because with this, with these pills coming in the mail, they don't have any idea if they have an ectopic pregnancy, if they've never had an ultrasound to see if that's the case. So my bill was very simple. Actually, it was pretty low, of just trying to make sure we stop the trafficking. But I am a pro-life legislator. I do not want to see women, I don't want to see any child lost, but I also don't want to see women suffer with the regret or the danger of themselves having a real problem. And since we have that current law, my bill was simply to make it equal to what we currently have. Please get out and vote. It helps us to know what you are interested in. Each one of us get out and really try to knock on your door and meet with you in person. You'll get a lot of mail from us because that's the most efficient way to do it. But we want to know what you think. We are blessed to be in a free society where we have a say. If you don't have a say, you really don't have a reason to get to gripe. That's my thought.
Thank you so much for meeting with me. I really appreciate it.
You are welcome. I appreciate you doing this. I hope the background didn't work out too badly.
Oh, it's perfectly fine.
So, but no, it's always interesting. It's I never say in I think you're probably still recording, but none of us ever love having a campaign, but it always makes us a better candidate.
Yeah.
Because what we do is just like I said, when we get out on the doors, I'm in my communities, they're smaller, and so I really am able to connect a lot. A lot of people actually represent, I went to high school with, cracks me up. But that we really get to visit with people and know what's of interest to them so that we can take it back to the legislature. Because I have a lot of thoughts myself, but that's why I say every election makes us a better candidate. And I hope people will take the opportunity to visit with their legislators, not just during session, but outside that opportunity too. Because when we're in session, it's all I have to make a decision right now. And when we're out of session, I can visit with you for an hour. That's why interim studies, I've been going, I think I went to 5 this week. Then I'm not even on the committee, but I just learn a lot. And I always encourage people to, they can listen to those online. And that's what I'm telling you, Ashley, because I hope you'll encourage people that they can plug in. They don't even have to go to the Capitol. They can watch it online and kind of know what's going on. So
I would say, out knocking doors, primary concern I hear from people is around educational outcomes. So, they're concerned from everything from pre-K all the way up to, higher education. So we just have to do a better job of improving our educational outcomes. And we have a lot of room to improve, since we're currently ranked 49th. And I think a lot of that goes to, we've been in Republican majority control for 14 years. We started that era ranked 17th in education, and then we just saw, lack of investment, kind of lack of respect for the profession, diverting money away from public schools into private, school vouchers. And we just have to, turn the ship around. We're not heading in the right direction. We just keep getting worse and worse. So we have to, sometimes the old adage is true, and you get what you pay for. So it's going to take a little bit of investment to turn this around, and I think the people in my district are up to it. I do think we have to make it easier to vote. So yeah, and I'm also a huge fan of ranked choice voting. So if we could get kind of open primaries in Oklahoma, so it's not kind of the most extreme ends of our spectrum, picking our candidates that then get elected at the statewide level. We just have to avoid that scenario. So I would be definitely in favor of open primaries. So, that everybody votes in the same primary, and then top two move on to the general election. I think that would be good for Oklahoma. Also a huge fan of ranked choice voting. If we could, get that done in Oklahoma, I think that would definitely, make it to where voters felt like they had more choices and more options. So definitely huge fan of that. But then also just making it easier to vote. So, other states have figured out how to allow, vote by mail without notary requirements or, additional restrictions that kind of make it difficult for, people who are busy to do their civic duty and vote. Not everyone has hours on election day to go stand in line. So, we have to make it easier, more precincts open for early voting, kind of, more ways to make it easier to get that done before election day. I think that's the way we need to go. I definitely think we have to invest in making sure that we have the healthcare that we need available to us. Things like mental health. I feel like it's extremely difficult to get, any part of the population access to mental health care, whether that be investing in more, counselors at the school level, so kids have easy access to that, or like, community initiatives to kind of make sure that we don't have these mental health care deserts where there's no professionals that are, within 45 miles of you. That's not good for Oklahomans, and it's definitely not good for our kids. So kind of investing in those outreach and making sure that we kind of destigmatize mental health and make sure that people know that these services are available to them. Yeah, I think that would be a good investment. Yeah, I do. I get kind of why people voted the way they did. Everybody's struggling to make ends meet. And then when you're like, no, now's the time that we really need to pass these bonds and get additional, property taxes and investment in our community. That might have been the right long-term decision, but when you don't, have the money to live, you kind of have to vote so that you can take care of your family first. But I do think there are certain initiatives that could help at the state level, and kind of, I feel like I hear that a lot, especially in the Piedmont area. It's just like the infrastructure and the state of the roads, and kind of having a better partnership between municipalities and the state to kind of make sure that, counties and cities and the state can kind of work together to make sure that we're prioritizing investing in improving our roads and in infrastructure in certain areas where it's desperately needed, like in Piedmont. So I think it would make a lot of sense to do that, rather than just kind of relying on, everyone to kind of fend for themselves. How can we, partner with each other to make it easier to get those improvements done? Yeah, I'm definitely pro-choice. I feel like abortion is healthcare. That shouldn't be something that the government should be kind of meddling in between a doctor and a woman and kind of what's going on with her healthcare during that pregnancy. I feel like it's put our state at a big disadvantage because, we see doctors leaving the state because why would you want to practice here whenever you risk, felony or fines or losing your license if you make the wrong call and a judge deems that the mother's, health wasn't really in danger. So I don't think that's the way to go. We've seen that it's very unpopular in most areas. I hope that eventually we get kind of abortion rights on the ballot here in Oklahoma, because I think if it was like a statewide proposition vote, I think that we would vote to protect access to abortion health care. So yeah, I'm definitely pro-choice and would vote against any bill that kind of limits a doctor or a woman being able to take control of their own healthcare. Yeah, my message to voters is my number one priority is to restore your faith in our state government's ability to kind of be good stewards with your tax dollars. So, government doesn't work whenever people don't really believe that their tax dollars are being spent wisely. And we've seen in our state a lot of issues with corruption and things not being transparent, and there's no accountability. So my number one priority would be increasing that. So that way, once you kind of have faith that your government is going to be good stewards with your money, then you're willing to invest. You're willing to kind of allow your elected representatives to make good choices to improve your communities. So I would say take a hard look at kind of how your representative has been voting. And if you don't agree with their record, then it's time to make a change. So, don't let's try to move away from identity politics where, we're straight party voting and moving on. Pay more attention to kind of who you're electing and how they would vote and ask those hard questions to make sure you're aligned.